Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do
So
you want?
yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
Um, okay. So welcome to the February meeting of the Equity Advisory Committee. And I want to acknowledge, and this is the usual disclaimer that we have to read about the setting that we have right now. So we need to acknowledge that COVID-19 is causing us to alter our usual procedures, and we have invited residents of the region to participate in this meeting virtually. The Met Council has determined it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person committee meeting due to the ongoing public health crisis. Accordingly, Met Council members will participate in this meeting via phone or other electronic means, and this Equity Advisory Committee meeting will be conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. Um, and just a couple of things that about the use of the chat function. I would just ask all the folks here to only use that for technical questions. For example, if you have problems signing in or you're muted, etc. Because we need to record the conversations and the questions and that happen, and we cannot do that on the chat. So if you have any information or links that you want to be posted, you can let Lila know, and she will distribute to the folks who are who are participating. And again, just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available online. So please, everybody, behave. So at this time, I call the meeting to order, and um, the time right now is 6:07 p.m. on February 15, 2022. And just to make sure that we have quorum, do we have quorum or do we need to call the roll call first?
I think we are close, but maybe not quite there yet. It might be helpful to call roll call.
Okay. Lila, can you call the roll call?
Yes, absolutely. Let me pull up the list here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Give me just a second here. Great. Okay, first name is Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Chai Lee did notify us that he will not be here today. Councilmember Sterner.
Here.
Awesome. Michael Lucini. All right. T. Way. Okay. Nicholas Jenkins. Anita Irvina Davis. Patrick Cheetah. And Patrick notified me that he is in Kenya, so we'll probably make it to the next meeting. I don't believe he's back yet. Is Edward McDonald here? He's also an excused absence, notified us of his absence today. Andrea Jenkins. Okay. Leah Goldstein Moses.
Here.
Zabat Awed is also absent, excused absence. Melinda Lee.
Melinda notified Francisco and I that she would be absent today.
Okay, sounds good. Jen Owens.
Here.
Okay. Mary Ann Padua. Brianne Rothstein.
I'm here. Hi.
Okay. All right. Stephanie Scheider. Okay. Betsy Sitkoff.
Here.
Kristen Stacy.
Here.
Okay. Just give me a second here to count everyone who is here.
And just to know that Marianne Padua just joined us.
Okay. Awesome.
As did Patrick.
We are at 9 people and we need 10 for a quorum. So we do not have quorum yet.
Okay. So in view of that, hopefully some folks might join in as we move forward. So we will just move into the other business instead of the approval of the minutes. Okay. So the next step on the agenda is we will take a few minutes and see if any members of the public had contacted us regarding addressing topics not on the agenda. Laila, have you heard if anybody has an interest?
I have not heard anything from anyone,
Okay.
any members
All
of the
right.
public.
Okay. Well, since we're moving along, let's the next item on the agenda that we had scheduled for tonight is see if any of the members of the EAC subcommittees have any updates that they would like to give a short, a brief recap. And again, the EAC subcommittees that we have right now are the transportation, operations, and the affordable housing subcommittees. Any of the folks want to share the latest development on their subcommittees?
I can say that the operations subcommittee has not met in the last month. And as part of some outreach to our new members, I have heard some interest in which subcommittees people are interested in. And so I will be making some connections for those of you that have talked to me over the last couple weeks to connect you to those subcommittees that you're interested in. Brianne, is there any update that you'd like to give from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee?
Hi. It's nice to see, well, some new faces, but mostly new names. So welcome to the new members. Just a little bit about the Housing Subcommittee in case you might be interested in joining our committee. Currently, we are working on submitting comments to the Greater Met Council in response to the local housing incentives account changes that have been made or proposed. And then we are also working on scheduling a housing forum specifically around the topic of the federal funding that's coming down the pike for affordable housing specifically. So trying to find the right subject matter expert for that, trying to connect with intergovernmental relations people at the Met Council who work on federal issues, since it's really hard to keep track of everything that's coming down and what might be coming through the Met Council and what might be, not coming through the Met Council. So those are the two things we're working on now. 2022 promises to be an opportunity for us to participate in the beginnings of the update of the housing policy plan, which is the regional doc, and frankly, the whole update of all the regional plans, because housing is such an integral part of the land use planning as well. So hoping to be getting in at the front end of that. Some EAC members have participated in the very beginning, which is scenario planning that they're doing for the region. So that's what some of the housing subcommittee members are working on. If you're interested, working through Leah to connect. And we don't have a standing meeting right now, but that's been on my to-do list to get it on the calendar. It's going to be Wednesday at 3. I think the fourth Wednesday at 3 was the time we decided. So I just a matter of getting a meeting invite out. And so if that time works okay for you, or you're really interested in, and we need to move the time, we can do that out through Leah. And I look forward to meeting some of the new folks.
Thank you. Before other questions, any other subcommittee meeting members that would like to give a short update? No. Do we have anybody from the transportation subcommittee?
I don't believe so. Sarah Rudolph is no longer on the EAC.
That's right.
And then T is not here this evening.
Okay, thank you. And Marianne, you had a question?
Okay, now I'm mute. Well, I do have a question with Brianne R. Brianne, I'm actually interested with joining your team, if that's okay. So I'd like to connect with you. Because I've also have a connection with Jean Martinez, and that's with housing. And so that would be something that we can maybe connect also with housing right now. And hopefully we can segue with housing. That is something huge right now that's going on. They're finding out, they're asking for some questions about people who are homeless. And from that, they're going to make some foundation for homeless shelters and all that, and also some HUD housing. If that's something that you're interested in, that would be great.
Fantastic. I'll add you to our committee if that's okay, Leah. And again, we don't have a standing meeting right now, but that's a goal to get on and start meeting regularly. So nice to meet you, Marianne.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone.
Excellent. Well, next on the agenda, let me welcome back Selena Martina, who's returning to share more information on the new Metro Transit Equity Statement. And I would just like to ask Selena to introduce herself because we have several new members, and then move on into the presentation if that's okay.
Sure, can you hear me? Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Council Member Gonzalez, Madam Chair, and committee members. Welcome to those of you who are new to the Equity Advisory Committee. My name is Selena Martina. I am the Senior Manager of Equity and Inclusion for Metro Transit. I joined Metro Transit last July, so it's been a little bit, almost, 8 months now. And happy to join a team that has been working on equity and inclusion work. And now I presented to some of you in December, so I'm back in front of you with some updates and new information. So if that's okay to start sharing my presentation, I can do so. If there are other questions, I can entertain that now too. Should I move in the presentation?
Yeah,
Yes?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Let me just give me a minute here to find the right screen.
Selena, are you going to go ahead and share your screen?
Yes, I am. Am I doing that now?
I initially asked Greg to do it, but if you'd like to do it, that's fine too.
Oh, okay. Are you able to see my title presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So again, I'm Selena Martina, and I am, here to give an update on transit equity from Metro Transit. So part of adopting a transit equity statement, that's the work that I've been charged to do as soon as I joined Metro Transit, is directed really by the strategic work that Metro Transit adopted early in the spring of 2021. So the strategic plan of Metro Transit consists of 5 goals and 4 core elements. And core element 1 is meaningful advance in equity in the region and within Metro Transit, has several action steps, as you can see there: staff training and capacity building, improving practices and procedures, engaging our workforce, and very importantly, that last topic, which is equity metrics and assessment. And before we start really assessing and evaluating and adopting new metrics for equity, we recognized that we needed to have a shared understanding of what transit equity was for Metro Transit, for Met Council, and for our region, so we can all be sharing that understanding and adopting that statement to move forward into developing evaluation tools. So today I'm going to be walking you through the timeline of adopting the transit equity statement, the feedback that was collected thus far, and also I will present you with the draft that we are planning to move to adoption and solicit input from this committee as well. So here's a timeline, and you've seen this in December, but we started this process in October. So the equity and inclusion team is represented by 20 members that work in different departments at Metro Transit, including operators, bus operators, train operators, managers, police department sergeants and officers and staff, civilians. So we have a really wide and very great representation of Metro Transit staff. So a subgroup of that committee, of that team, we did what we call a literature review and first drafting of the equity transit equity statement. We review scholar articles. We connected with other agencies, transit agencies in the nation. We looked at their statements, their definitions of equity, their work, their tools. We also looked into best practices. We know that the Transit Center is an organization that does a lot of really great work in research and supports transit agencies to really dig deeper in equity work as well as other work that inclusion and diversity work. But we also pull from staff experiences. We want to make sure that our statement resonates and is shared by all members of Metro Transit, and especially those that are frontline employees that have really the closest experience to our riders. So after we did an initial draft, we moved into the feedback and input phase, where we did several presentations, not only to Metro Transit departments. We went in person to facilities, collected feedback. We created a form on MetNet for people to comment. And we presented to Met Council staff. We did really solicit feedback from several Met Council staff, employees, and Metro Transit staff. And late in January, we also presented to the Transit Accessibility Advisory Committee, so TAC, and they also we solicit their input, and they provide great direction for the draft to not only resonate with our disability community, but also they pointed us to resources that are really going to help when we develop evaluation tools and who we need to engage moving forward. So we are really trying right now to make our draft a final draft. So leaders at Metro Transit will be adopting. And again, we want to move into what's coming after the adoption of a shared definition of transit equity, which is developing the tools to improve our processes and really go into the analysis and the evaluations that we need to do on outcomes that are currently impacting our riders. And this is not just a one-time process. And I think I said this to this committee in the past in December, that we are looking for this process to be an iterative process. So we know that what we knew about equity 10 years ago is not enough today. So we need to continue to review based on our learnings, our history. And it's important that, we build a process that this transit equity statement can be reviewed frequently. So it can incorporate the latest, research about equity work in transit, new relevant information that we learn from our riders, our community members' viewpoints, etc. So this is, we'll continue to engage internally and externally with this statement and build a process to do either an annual revision or every 2 years revision of our statement. So again, this is not one and done. We hope that we'll continue to learn. So with that, I want to share with you what we have heard so far about the draft, and we have been able to incorporate many of these feedback and input that we got thus far, and those are summarized in the topics that you have in front of you, which is the statement needs to include groups like Black, Indigenous people of color, people with disabilities, women, and older adults, and that has to be explicit. We also have to include in our equity statement or transit equity statement, acknowledge the inequities that happened and continue to happen, and recognize the work that, although it is well done and is really moving our dial forward in advancing equity in our region, but also remaining gaps that we need to tackle. And lastly, this has been a very constant theme that we heard from various staff, staff members across the organization, was to include a strong commitment and responsibility to equity work. So with that, the next slide will include the draft statement that I'd like you to take a look at it, and I will be soliciting feedback, and I have a couple of questions that will guide our discussion if you allow me to do so. So this is the transit equity draft. It's a little bit lengthy, but again, it incorporates the feedback that we have heard so far. Would you like me to read it so people can? Okay, good. I see nodding heads in my little screen. All right. So Metro Transit acknowledges that providing safe, affordable, and reliable transportation increases opportunity. Transit services and programs should be built to equitably benefit all, especially underserved communities, including BIPOC, low wealth, women, people with disability, LGBTQ, and older adults. Transit equity requires identifying and addressing injustices and building actionable pathways to create a fair and more just future. Metro Transit understands that transit decisions can impact the ability for underserved communities to find and keep jobs, reach medical care, access educational opportunities and affordable housing, and develop and maintain social connections, among other impacts. Transit services and investments can reduce spatial inequalities that contribute to racial and economic disparities. Metro Transit has an essential role and responsibility to examine all decisions impacting our region's access to quality transit, reduce existing disparities, and prevent further inequities by reviewing and revising policies, seeking partnerships with other responsible institutions, and improving planning and operational practices. Metro Transit's 2021 strategic plan includes strategies and actions to advance equity within the agency and in our region. And I want to show you, and I will come back to this slide, but I want to show you that something that we heard that is needed is, to add some of the definitions that are included in the draft statement. And this, in partnership with the TAC, we included these disability definitions. And these are not definitions that are coming from a dictionary, but this is really part of that shared understanding. So what do we mean when we say underserved communities, BIPOC, disability, inequities, and spatial inequalities? So, and I'll come back again to the draft statement. These are some of the questions that I've been using to when presenting to different groups, or we've been using to gather feedback and solicit input. What is that you like about the statement? What can be explained further, or in our key definitions page? And what other input or feedback do you have about that? So with that, I'll go back to this statement draft and just, hear your thoughts, questions, or initial insights about this work.
Let me just start, and maybe this is more like a clarifying point. I know that we had discussed, especially under the leadership of Anita Urbina, about the environmental issues regarding communities of color in the Twin Cities. So I was wondering if those inequities regarding to environmental issues, and I'm thinking about the where does transit fit into that, and one obvious part is the use of electric buses or other transit vehicles that do not contribute to pollution in those areas that are already hit hard by pollution. Anyways, so I'm wondering if that discussion is held somewhere else, or is that should be part of this transit equity draft?
Yeah, thank you, Council Member Gonzalez. And the discussion you're referring to is part of, right now the operations of the strategic plan, because it is included in the strategic plan as a goal. And equity is, as a core element, has also, an impact in how the zero emission plan has been proposed to the legislature, and what equity outcomes we want to see in that plan as we implement and electrify our fleet. So that is really at the forefront of the implementation of the zero emission plan. But I also want to say that we have been really involved at the Met Council level in our climate action plan and environmental justice, task force that is, starting to form and perhaps make your recommendations and develop the plan that will, guide policy around environmental policies. So it is, is perhaps what I'm hearing is perhaps it's not obvious in this transit equity draft, and that's something that we can consider. And certainly, I'm taking note that this is something that we can add. But I want to reassure you that it is part of the strategic plan. So the conversations and the implementation is happening. But that's a great point that is not probably very obvious coming out of this transit equity statement. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that most certainly I know that those are discussions are happening. That's why I was wondering if you should include like you said, because you make reference to economic, medical care, a number of other things. Maybe insert reducing environmental impact or words to that effect amongst the the areas that we want to address. Again, just to stress that too, in addition to all the other fields that you already mentioned.
That's a great feedback. Thank you. Yes.
And just an aside, Councilmember Sterner just pointed out that perhaps we have quorum right now. Laila, can you double check?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, we do. Vanessa just joined.
Okay. So after we're done with the presentation by Selena, maybe we can go back to a roll call and then approve the minutes, and then we'll continue with the rest of the agenda. Okay. Yeah, Selena, just go ahead. Sorry for interruption.
Oh, no, thank you. So again, thank you. Really, it's very important for Metro Transit to have the Equity Advisory Committee really provide your input, your feedback, your thoughts about not only this draft statement, but also the process. And, when I was here in December, I heard, some of the work that needs to happen still, which is, involving community partners, other organizations and individuals that, will help not only provide feedback about the transit equity statement, but also, how we continue to implement the equity work and actions of the strategic plan. So.
I see one of our members, Marianne Padua, has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I cannot see hands up. Thank you, Leah.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, thank you. I have a question. Since I haven't written transit for a long time, so my question is, how much does it cost again for each for people with disability and low-income people, for especially people with on Social Security disability?
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry. Did you have another question? Did I interrupt you?
On that?
No, okay. Yeah, I can answer. I can answer that. Metro Transit has different programs. One very well-known program is our Transit Assistant Program. So our Transit Assistant Program partners with individuals from low-income communities or low-wealth areas. I have a lot of echo. I'm sorry. Return. Can you hear me right? Let me try this. Now is better?
I think Marianne might, okay, she's muted. I think it was just feedback from there.
All right. Okay, I'll try again. Sorry. So Metro Transit has a very well-known program that is called TAP, or Transit Assistance Program, and that program right now has over 7,000 individuals that are if you will, members of that program that receive the benefits of transit assistance. So they receive discounted fares depending on their income or demographic or situation that they're navigating. So we have over 7,000 individuals right now that are in our TAP program. That is an area. Our TAP program is an area within the strategic plan of Metro Transit that we want to continue to not only expand but evaluate, that is being really effective and is really connecting with those that are most in need. Also, many members of our disability community use Metro Transit, and a lot of them also use Metro Mobility. So the Met Council also has transit services that is called Metro Mobility that may, be more catered to the needs and accommodate better the needs of some members of our disability community. So, and they do receive fares and reduced fares that are, again, each individual, depending on their situation, their income, sometimes their, type of disability, they may get a special fare. So we do have programs of low and discounted fares for our riders who are in most needs.
Selena, I see another of our members, Vanessa, has her hand up.
Thank you.
Hi, quick question in regard to Metro Mobility for individuals who are disabled. In order to get approved, I know they have to fill out forms from their doctor and so forth. Do they still have to go to the Metro Transit office and present themselves in order to qualify for Metro Mobility services?
Thank you, Vanessa. And you're putting me in a very hard spot right now because, Metro Mobility is part of our transit transportation department, which is a division, which is not really Metro Transit. So I know it's hard for our general public to understand that Metro Mobility is not part of Metro Transit, but really we operate very differently and separate. But so I'm sorry that I will not be able to answer precisely your question, and but I can, get back to you and make sure that I connect with Metro Mobility staff to understand better how our members from the disability community get registered. I believe, that right now, because of the pandemic, things have been a little bit smoother in terms of like people don't have to be in person. So, but I cannot really, I will have to get you an exact answer about how members are registered to receive service from Metro Mobility. For Metro Transit, though, is again, you can contact Metro Transit and inquire about our transit assistant program, and you can, forward certain documentation and, get the benefits right away. And then you'll be mailed a card, a to-go card, and utilize the benefits in any of our, rail or train or buses.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I don't have the complete answer for you. I'll get back to you.
And I see Brianne has a hand up.
Hi, Selena. Thank you so much for coming back to us.
No problem.
And acknowledging what you heard the last time in the prior slide to this. I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the facilitated questions. So thank you for that. A couple of things that I remember we talked about, especially when you sparked my memory on the last slide, the last time you were here, that I just want to reemphasize that I think could be stronger in this statement. One is centering and prioritizing the users, particularly those who are underserved or underrepresented communities. So, you say it will be built equitably to benefit all, and then especially underserved. So I think there's a way you could rewrite it so that underserved and underrepresented communities are centered in the statement, probably simply by removing all especially. But, I don't need to wordsmith. I just want the point that the centering of the users, and particularly those users who have historically been underrepresented in the decision-making about the transit that they're presumably overrepresented in using. So that's the first point. The second point is we spent good amount of time last time talking about acknowledging the prior transportation decisions that have been extremely detrimentally impactful to certain communities, particularly communities of color. I don't really see that in here at all, like a statement of acknowledgement of the fact that our prior transportation decisions have been extremely detrimental to certain communities. because I think that that helps set the context for why we're centering underserved communities in the first place, besides the fact that they're users of the system, you know. But I do think having a statement in there that says we acknowledge that prior transportation decisions have been made without community voice or without the voice of the users, or however we want to, without communities of color, however we want to say that, is going to be really important as we move forward. Which leads me to my third point, which is how does this statement get used when making particularly route decisions? So you have planning and operations, and I suppose route decisions are part of operations, but how will this, and maybe this is rhetorical, but, or maybe you've given it thought and it's been a point of discussion, but how is this statement used when making route decisions or levels of service decisions? So that's what I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for the feedback and the input. And, certainly we heard you're not, we heard you're part of the theme of centering our statement in those that have been historically marginalized by systems of oppression. So I, certainly hear you, and I'll make sure that we continue to refine and wordsmith a little bit to ensure that there is that emphasis. And, it is huge and important, again, to make sure that our shared understanding acknowledges that in the past, decisions and other actions have been made without including, involving, or, the voices and shared power with the underrepresented communities. So thank you very much. And I'll continue to work with Metro Transit staff and leadership to make sure that this transit equity statement, highlights and emphasizes those. In terms of the third, question you had about how is this transit equity statement going to be used, and I think that is the part and that's why I feel like I'm ready really to adopt a statement, because I feel like we can be in a statement for a long time, and that's not a place to be to advance equity in our region. We really need to move into actions and operationalize what we believe, right? So our service decisions are very complex because, and they're not only, made by operation. We have a service development department at Metro Transit that works closely with operations and other departments to make service changes or service additions decisions. And as you know, we are, in the midst of the pandemic, and we are, as any other transit agency in the nation and other, organizations, really suffering from a shortage of operators, bus and rail operators. So sometimes our, latest decisions had to really be done. Sometimes prioritizing the level of service we have in terms of who we have available to and trained and ready to offer, right? The bus routes and the rail routes that we need to offer, but they're very complex. They're not like the availability of operators is not a single variable that determines service levels. And of course, we the hope is to use the transit equity statement and other tools to continue to evaluate the equity impact of those changes in service or addition in services, right? So I give you an example. So we're really working hard right now. We are going to have after a second year. Last year we did a service equity evaluation that we share with the council, and we are going to share it with you hopefully in April. That's our timeline. So I'll come back to you with members of the service development team and our strategic initiatives to share with you our service equity evaluation of 2021. But then we'll continue to look into metrics and measures, and again, you'll be involved in that, of how this transit equity translate into service. What kind of measures we need to continue to look that affect our riders, that we need to evaluate and see the performance year after year. we are already using this draft statement because we could not wait anymore in our budget development. So we have started talking about budgets, and we couldn't really afford go into budget discussions without having some kind of reference. So budget managers are using this draft at least to dig deeper and look into their department budgets and how equity considerations can be made in relation to this draft. So, yeah, so those are some areas.
Marianne had a question in the chat. Marianne, would you like to say it out loud?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, I'd like to ask, do you still have that policy where a third strike, no show for people with disabilities, that, the the pickup, what is that called? The moving that they get penalized for a full month. They can't get picked up anymore, and so their reason, even though it's the reasoning such as they have bladder problems or stomach problems, vomiting, and times the transit times they make them wait for an hour, and that's problems. But if they're the ones who are late 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then they get penalized.
Yeah.
Third strike, they are out for a full month and they have no ride for a full month.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question, Marianne. And it's kind of like, the same answer as I gave to Vanessa. I believe the service you're referring to is our Metro Mobility service that does, individual pickups. And again, it's very hard to understand, but Metro Mobility is not part of Metro Transit. We are under the Metropolitan Council. Metro Mobility is within our transportation division, and Metro Transit, it's its own division by itself. So I will have to connect with Metro Mobility staff to ensure that I understand the policy of, pick up or drop off, and pick up and no show pickups to ensure that, I understand better how they are, performing on that policy or applying that. I would not have an answer for you. I'm sorry, because again, Metro Mobility is, and Metro Transit, we do have fixed routes. So we have standard bus stops and, stations, and we have, rapid lines so our bus stops and stations are really fixed by the system. So we don't do door-to-door pickup. But so I believe you're referring to Metro Mobility. Sorry.
Patrick let me know that he'd like to say something, and then I see Vanessa has a question as well. So we'll do Patrick and then come back to Vanessa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay? I just want to say I apologize for missing the last meeting. I had been traveling internationally, and I'm back, but I did want to echo Brianna's comments about the wording in the statement, because even though this is a draft, I think that words matter and language matters, and so I did want to just echo, her having brought up the wording to be able to say equitably benefit underserved communities to center those communities that have historically, not been centered and even marginalized. So I think that's an incredibly important point that she made, and I just wanted to make that emphatic comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that feedback. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Vanessa put a question in the comment that maybe you can say out loud. Just one quick note that we try not to use the chat function for our discussion because then it can't get into the public record, which this is a public meeting. So Vanessa, I'm going to turn it over to you to verbally say your comment, and then Councilmember Sterner, I see you responded, so maybe you can do your response verbally as well, but I'll turn it to Vanessa first.
Thank you so much. So just a quick question. I just wanted to know, I always see the signs, Metro Transit is hiring, looking for, good people and just trying to improve service and so forth. I wanted to know if Metro Transit is a felony friendly company. Do you hire felons?
And my comment is that they do hire people with felonies, and it kind of depends on the type of felony it is, violent or against people, and then how long ago it was and what kind of changes. But they are open to hiring people with felonies.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Council Members Turner and Vanessa, for your question. And we continue to look into ways that will eliminate barriers for people to apply, to get connected to not only a job at Metro Transit, but a career. Metro Transit is a great place to build a career. Several people. Many people start in it, as a sometimes in the maintenance or mechanics or operators, and they build a career into managerial positions or other positions that may be interested. So Metro Transit is a big employer of our region. So we need to look at not only hiring people for positions or eliminating barriers for those who may have been, part of our system with felonies or different types of infractions, and we need to make sure that we diminish barriers so we can be friendly and attractive to all individuals. So thank you very much.
I see Kristen's hand is up, and Francisco, I'm just doing a quick time check. Should we take Kristen's question and then move on in our agenda? What do you think?
I think we're hitting the time crunch here. So yeah, Kristen, you go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So I just had a question. There is a section where it talks about older adults, but what about students or like my nephew and niece? They used the Metro Transit for charter school in Minneapolis where it didn't have a bus system. They actually used city routes for transportation. So I'm just curious, on your guys' list for equality.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yes, that is something that we have been, discussing lately, because we do have a lot of our youth, especially, Minneapolis Public Schools and St. Paul Public Schools, some high schools, Minneapolis, all high schools offer, go-to cars to their students to get to their schools. So certainly we are building a ridership for the future as we engage more students in our region to use Metro Transit. So this is, thank you for your input and feedback, something that, we need to consider to make more obvious in the statement. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Selena, for this presentation and for the willingness to include the ideas of the EAC as you move forward. And just a quick comment before I forget. I know that when I first started at the council, we had an orientation of how the bus routes were planned and how the future plans of expansions are done. And the issue of equity was discussed at that time at the council level by several council members and the chair at that time, Chair Slavic. I think that right now, because of COVID and a whole bunch of other issues, um, a lot of that initial legwork, I think, has been put on pause for a number of reasons. But I just want to let the members know that that discussion has been happening for several years of how to make sure that even if the route is not the most heavily used, or that they might need less bus stops and things like that, but the fact that we are serving long time underserved communities is taken into account more than just the technical aspects of the numbers of riders. So just a little bit of background that indeed is it's part of the mix when setting up services. Thank you again, Selena, and feel free to drop by anytime.
Thank you. You'll see me for sure in April, if not
All right.
earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to just go back on the agenda since we do have a quorum now, to see if we can approve the minutes and also take care of any other business that requires a quorum. So just if you bear with me for a second, I would just like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the January 18th, 2022 meeting. And I think that the minutes were sent already to the folks here. And do we have any questions about the minutes before starting the motion? No? Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 18th, 2022?
This is Brianne. I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I know the second.
Excellent. Any discussion? Um, Seeing none, Lila, will you call the roll?
Absolutely. All right, Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee, Councilmember Sterner,
Aye.
Michael Lucini, P. Way, Nicholas Jenkins, Anita Irvina Davis, Patrick Cheetah,
Aye, present.
Edward McDonald, Vanessa Jenkins,
Present.
Leah Goldstein Moses,
Aye.
Zabat Oed, Melinda Lee, Jen Owens, Marianne Potter,
Aye.
Brianne Rothstein,
Aye.
Stephanie Scheider, Betsy Sitkoff,
Aye.
Kristen Stacy.
Aye.
All right, motion passed.
Excellent. Thank you. I think that was the only business that we needed a roll call at this time. So returning back to the agenda, I think the next item that we have scheduled is the discussion about the bylaws. And just to refresh folks' recollections, we've been trying to change the bylaws to address a few issues that had come up um, as far as how to make the EAC more effective. We had a discussion at the last meeting about how we needed to get more input from the EAC members on the bylaws. And I think we had that space provided. And my understanding is that we're ready to have the discussion and hopefully a vote too, Leah, or we're not there yet.
We were going to have an opportunity to discuss today and then again at next week's standing committee, and then we'll do a vote in March.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's what I meant to say.
Yes. I can share just a little bit.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to several of you just to welcome you to the EAC as new members. And in those conversations, some really good ideas about the bylaws emerged. So I wanted to share back what I've heard already about the bylaws. One of the things that I heard is that our bylaws should specifically ground us in making accommodations for people with disabilities, that should be explicitly stated in our bylaws, that we will make accommodations so that people with disabilities can participate in the EAC. Another thing that came up in the from new members was the idea of a nominating committee should be called out in the bylaws so that as we have vacancies, there's an opportunity for members to reach out to community members that they know would be really good contributors to the EAC and do nominations. And then this wasn't specifically about the bylaws, but a request that we, as a group, spend some time talking about what our norms and preferences are so that we can have productive discussions and really be listening to each other. So that came up in kind of a response to a discussion about the bylaws, but it was more of an idea of how we can function well together. So tonight we're running a little short on time. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was just start with the very first page of our bylaws and take comments and ideas on that first page before we go on to our next agenda item. At our standing committee, we'll review some of the other pages of our bylaws and take a little bit more time for discussion. And then again, I'm always available for a conversation or an email as well. So those don't have to be your only chances to contribute. With our hope that we can get all of our feedback by our next meeting and vote at our next meeting. So I'm going to share my screen. And the screen I want to share is that one. Do you see the bylaws right now? I'm going to make them bigger, but do you see them?
Yes, yes.
Yes, they're small, but yes.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the reasons I wanted to start with sharing this first page tonight rather than try and move past it is because I think this first page is really interesting about what our purpose of our EAC is. And we have some new members, and I thought this could be good reading for you. So I'll just give you a chance to read. I will also read the first paragraph out loud. So our purpose and our name. On October 14th of 2015, the Metropolitan Council established the Equity Advisory Committee. The committee shall advise the council regarding the development of policies and appropriate processes for assessing and monitoring the council's performance against such policies in the council's efforts to advance equity in the region. As requested by the council, the committee shall provide advice regarding various policy issues, and the committee may also identify additional policy topics for the council's consideration to address. So I'm going to pause to give you a chance to read the rest of what you can see on the screen, and then I'm going to scroll down just a little bit so you can read about membership. Would anybody like me to read this out loud? Are you looking on a phone and it's really small and you'd prefer I read it out loud?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm going to go on to talk about our membership and how they are appointed. Committee members are appointed by the council in accordance with council bylaws and policies. The committee shall be composed of 21 voting members. 4 council members, 1 each from the council's community development, environment, transportation, and management committees. 8 geographic members, 1 from each of the following districts. And I won't read the districts, but you can see these on a map on the website. And then 9 at-large members, each of whom must be a resident of the 7-county metropolitan area as defined in Minnesota statutes. Of the geographic and at-large members, the following groups should have at least 1 representative: African Americans, Asian Americans, Native Americans, Latinos, immigrants and new Americans, low-wealth residents, and people with disabilities. Committee members serve at the pleasure of the council and may be removed by the council at any time. So I'm going to take just 10 minutes to take comments or reflections about this part. If there's anything that you're noticing or you think is missing or is problematic, I'll just spend 10 minutes on just this page, and then we'll come back to the other pages at future meetings.
I'll just make a quick comment and just to stress, as Leah just read, the purpose, and just for us to remind ourselves to focus on policy topics. Not that we cannot bring discussions of other matters, like again, the one that always sticks in my mind is the issue of when I first started the council and the vigorous discussions that we had at the EAC when the green line hours were reduced, and that was some members of the EAC at the time indicated that that would be a hardship on the ridership, and that's proper. But on the other hand, we don't want the purpose, which is to discuss the big policy issues, to be not addressed because we're focusing too much on the programs. Hopefully we can do both, but definitely focusing a lot of our energy and time on making policy recommendations, because that's where the big changes are going to come. So that was just an observation.
Marianne, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Okay. Now, the last sentence there, where committee members serve at the pleasure of the council and may be removed by the council at any time. And I think there should be at least a reason, some kind of reason why, for A, B, or C, for a reason such as why, or you can't just have one sentence like that, because we're appointed by the state and then all of a sudden we are being threatened. So I don't think that's just a right thing to do or say to us. So you need to have at least some kind of reason in our bylaws. Okay.
Thank
You
you.
can't just state that.
Point noted.
Thank you.
Just one point of clarification is that we're actually appointed by the council, not the state. But thank you, Marianne. That point is noted.
Okay. but I'm just pleased that we need to clarify things.
Thank you. Brianne, I see your hand up.
Thanks. So a couple things. One is that we're missing council member representation. We're not in line with our bylaws because we don't have 4 council members attending our meetings. So I don't know what to do about that other than to bring it to the awareness of this Metropolitan Council. I know the council members serve in largely volunteer positions themselves, and so it puts a huge onus on the council members to have to come to multiple different committee meetings. But we should change that if we're not going to have 4. Otherwise, we have to bring the fact that we don't have 4 and that we're in violation of our bylaws to the council directly, perhaps at our update. And then the other big thing that stands out to me is that we are to advise the council regarding the development of policies and processes for assessing and monitoring council's performance. So I think we need, and again, this is, I think, addressed in our presentation, but we need a direct ability to inform the council directly on things. And so whether that's being proactive in deciding what we want to inform the council directly on, or whether it's the staff coming to us and saying, this is what we want you to inform the council on, like either one would be great. But if we write a memo or if we have feedback that's in minutes or in writing, it needs to go directly to the council as far as the way I read this and not put through a staff process. So unless the council equals staff, then I think we need a way to submit our comments in writing directly to the council versus just to staff and then it not going to the council by way of staff. So those are the 2 things that stand out to me. I think the membership composition is good, both demographic and number, geographic and number. This might be on a future page, but I would like to discuss the attendance policies and requirements associated with that, and whether or not we want to have an automatic, fall off the committee if you miss a certain number of meetings or not. But thanks.
Thank you for those 2 comments. We have time for one more, I think, before we move on to our next presentation. So are there any other comments? I don't see any other hands up, but someone might want to say something. All right, we will come back to this. As I mentioned, we'll talk about this at the standing. Oh, Jen, go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say, yeah, it does make it makes a lot of sense to me to like really get clear on how we're going to present the information that we're discussing in our committees to the council. As far as equity and advisory committee, how we're going to, the information that we're collecting and gathering, we're advising the Metro Council, so how we're going to present that information to them. And maybe that's a question you guys can answer. How have you guys presented the information from these committees to the Metropolitan Council, I guess, versus making a statement? I guess I'll ask a question. If anyone wants to share, that would be great.
That's a really great question, and one that I have to admit we've tried a few different things over the years and is something that we are going to be asking the council to partner with us to solve at a presentation, which I will talk about a little bit later in our meeting. So thank you, Jen. It isn't clear to me either, and I believe not to Francisco.
Yeah, and just briefly, and we had many discussions about exactly that point of how to have a good process back and forth between the EAC and the council. One thing that this discussion has sparked is, shall we have whatever process gets decided at the end added to the bylaws? I mean, we thought that we can just have a separate agreement, or not agreement, a separate document of some sort indicating how that feedback back and forth is going to operate. But maybe we should consider including whatever we decide with the council at the end of the day, including that process in the bylaws, just to make sure that it's clear and that people do abide by it. So something to consider.
Thank you. I so appreciated this conversation. It will be continued. And I think I'll turn it over to our next agenda item. Francisco, do you want to introduce that, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I can go ahead, and our next on our agenda is the presentation from the Office of Equal Opportunity, and are we introducing Nyambi too at this time? Okay, excellent. So let's just allow the folks from OE, the Office of Equal Opportunity, to take the stage at this time. So welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez and Leah. Yes, we would like to introduce Nyambi Shakir. She's the newest member in the Equity Implementation Unit. She'll be working closely with the EAC on liaison work and will help uplift this work throughout the council. So I'm going to let Nyambi share a little bit about herself.
Thank you, Lila. Good evening, everyone. Like Lila mentioned, I'm Nyambi Shakir. I am the new, I guess, or maybe this is a new position, the EO consultant with the Met Council in the OEO office. Prior to joining the council, I worked for the Department of Human Services and the Behavioral Health Division, working with mental health equity, policy, and crisis services. I also look forward to working with the EAC, collaborating with everyone, taking a look at social equity policy and also social determinants of health in our communities and the service and the impact it has within our communities. So thank you for having me today, and I will turn it back over to Lila.
Thank you, Nyambi. All right, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Let's take just a second here. All right. All right. So tonight, we thought it would be a good idea to do an overview of the Office of Equal Opportunity, which is where that is me, Nyambi, Ashanti, and I think everyone on this call tonight has met Cy, or almost everyone has met Cy Jordan, who's our director. More for information and to really understand how the EAC fits within the Office of Equal Opportunity. All right, so we are going to, back here, sorry. We're gonna cover Metropolitan Council structure, an overview of divisions, Office of Equal Opportunity, and we'll talk a little bit about the Equity Implementation Unit and how our work ties into overall equity. So the Metropolitan Council is unique. The regional form of government is, I mean, we're one of the only regional forms of government that operates the way we do. Seattle, Washington is the only other place in the United States that has a similar structure to ours. The Metropolitan Council receives some state and federal funding. We talked a little bit about that in housing, transportation, environmental services as well, and then the Metropolitan Transportation Services. We are a regional government. We're appointed by the governor to provide comprehensive integrated planning and services for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. We are accountable to the governor for the planning and services we provide. However, we are separate from state government. We're technically not a governmental agency. And can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, sounds good. This is what our structure looks like. Mary Bogie, our regional administrator, sits right here at the top. And then regional administration, which the Office of Equal Opportunity is part of, is directly accountable to Mary Bogie. Our director, Cy Jordan, reports directly to Mary Bogie. And so works its way up through that channel. There are 4 other divisions. Regional administration provides support to all of these other divisions. That includes governmental affairs. It includes human resources, communications, and other types of services. Our other divisions are community development, environmental services, metropolitan transportation services. That's what Selena was referring to earlier. That's its own separate division. And then we have Metro Transit, which Selena is part of. So it was difficult for Selena to go over that earlier, but this visual might help folks understand this better. All right, so again, these are the 5 divisions: regional administration, community development, environmental services, Metro Transit, and the metropolitan transportation services. Each division has its own set of responsibilities. Community development works on regional systems planning and growth strategy, local planning assistance, livable communities, Metro HRA, parks and natural resources, research and policy. That's just some of the things that they do. Same goes with all of the other divisions. Environmental services works on wastewater treatment, industrial waste, water quality management, interceptor conveyance, research, development, and planning. They also have their own workforce and equity team. Metro Transit, they are responsible for bus, rail, Metro Transit Police, transit system development, rail and bus safety, and they have their own administration department there. And some of the things that they work on are, it includes grants, reviews, and allocation of funds. The Metropolitan Transportation Services Department, they're the department that work with contract transit, and that contract transit includes Metro Mobility, which is a lot of the questions tonight were regarding that. They also, looks like some of this transferred over to the slide, so I apologize for that. They work on highway and multimodal planning, travel modeling, and research. They're a smaller department. Like I said, some of this transferred over in the slide, so I apologize for that, but they do, they're smaller than Metro Transit, but absolutely their job is just as important and as big as the other divisions. All right. So for regional administration, we provide a variety of services, as I stated before: communications, government affairs, human resources, risk management, finance and operations, contracts and procurement, information services, and again, the Office of Equal Opportunity. And we'll talk about that a little more through the next slides. The Office of Equal Opportunity includes the Small Business Unit, Engagement and Development Unit, Light Rail, and Transit Unit. Those 3 units are, Ashanti is their leader. They report directly to Ashanti, and he's very intimately involved in that work. And I'll let Ashanti go over, some of the work that he's working on at this time. Stop sharing my screen.
All right, thanks, Lila, and thank you, Chair and committee members. I am going to share my screen real fast. I'm going to turn off my video. All right, our small business programs
units consists of three units, the small business unit, and our light rail transit unit, and our engagement and development unit. The small business unit and light rail transit unit really are parallel with each other. They both provide the regulatory and compliance functions for our small business programs. And our small business programs include the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, otherwise known as the DBE program, and the Metropolitan Council Underutilized Business Program, or MCUP program. The third unit is our Engagement and Development unit. And really, that, as we know, is important as our regulatory and compliance functions are. They only take us so far. And most, if not all, of our regulatory and compliance statutes and policies were drafted and written in the 80s or in the 60s. And equity is not mentioned in the legislation, nor is an outcome that's achieved. So this unit was really developed to help us reach beyond compliance and regulation and help us get to more equitable outcomes. In terms of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise and MCUP programs, they are distinctly separated by funding source. DBE program is applicable to any projects or services that have at least $1 of federal funding, and Metropolitan Council or the MCUP program is applicable to our locally funded projects and services. So just a few things. You know, the council reviewed 276 projects for a small business inclusion goal. 123 of those were assigned a numeric goal. SBU, and when I mention SBU in these stats, I'm including the light rail transit unit as well. So SBU has performed and completed 134 bid proposal evaluations, and this is not inclusive of technical proposals that are reviewed as part of design build projects and utilized to shortlist bidders or proposers. We also, of those 276, reviewed 77 that we did not set a numeric goal for MCUP Select. MCUP Select is a shelter market program where only MCUBs can participate or bid on those projects of up to $175,000. And of those 77 projects that reviewed, SBU recommended 29 of those projects for MCUB Select. 99 or 96 bidders or proposers met or exceeded the goal. 6, and this is 2021, 6 did not meet the goal, but made adequate good faith efforts. 32 bidders or proposers did not meet the goal and did not make adequate good faith efforts. When you do not meet the goal as a bidder or proposer, you are subject to due process, and you can request administrative reconsideration of OEO's decision of not to award the project to you as a bidder or proposer. And there were 16 administrative hearings that were conducted in 2021. Also, SBU certifies DBE businesses along with the MIN-UCP that consists of MnDOT, Metropolitan Airports Commission, City of Minneapolis, and of course, the council. And the council staff, SBU certified 35 new DBE firms. Just as a comparison, in 2020, council staff certified 53. We also processed 312 no change affidavits yearly. DBE firms are required to submit no change to certify that they have not made any significant changes that would affect their eligibility to remain in the program. And then also, SBU conducted 220 commercially useful function reviews, which includes desk audits, but also site visits to review performance and activities of DBEs and MCUBs out on the projects and outcomes in real time. And we also have a reporting function. We have a triennial goal for our DBE programs, and that utilization goal is reported to FTA semi-annually in June and December, and annually for our Public Facilities Administration or EPA, Environmental Protection Agency federally funded projects in October. And our triennial FTA DBE goal is 14% currently, and for our EPA, it is 12%. We also, in 2020, raised our MCUB goals through policy and with the council from 12% to 14% in construction and to 10% in goods and services. In terms of the engagement and development unit, we facilitated 16 meet and greet events, 14 individual businesses, and 2 large group events. These meet and greet events impacted or included 38 DBE or MCUB firms and 51 larger, longer established firms or firms that are currently plan holders with the council. There were a survey that was conducted in 2021, and that reached 346 DBE and MCUBs that responded in 28 larger, longer established firms. And a lot of that, that information was used to advise and guide the EDU strategic plan. And we have begun significant work and close to accomplishing the first 3 priority items on that strategic plan. There was an HVAC training event that was held and included staff and equipment and a video for both Metro Transit engineering facilities and environmental services divisions. And then there was one mentor-protege relationship that was executed in 2021. However, we have 4 active mentor-protege relationships, and actually that just went to 5 after our mentor-protege event that we had in February of this year. I mentioned the mentor-protege. It has been an effective tool. We've had one business that had 0 contracts as of 2020 with the council, and now has over $2 million in awarded contracts with the council. This is a Black-owned construction firm. So it has been a successful initiative for us. And that's it for me. See if I can stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Shanti. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here. All right. Can everyone see that? Okay, perfect. All right. So the next unit within the Office of Equal Opportunity is the Investigations Resolution Unit, and they're called IRU. And IRU investigates discrimination complaints received from inside and outside of the organization. So if you think if staff or anyone else within the organization has a discrimination, very specifically a discrimination complaint, or if one of our customer has a discrimination complaint, that comes up to our Investigation Resolutions Unit. It is investigated, and then we provide, the IRU unit provides feedback or a resolution to the situation. They also monitor complaints to ensure proper action, and at times discipline is taken. Proper discipline, we want to make sure that we emphasize that. We want to make sure that it's proper and that it fits the situation. And then also any EEOC complaints that we receive, they respond to that. They also lead operator new hire training on ADA. So they train bus operators on ADA and how to utilize the equipment in their buses, or what's required in order to provide services to people with disabilities. And then they also provide additional advice on discrimination law and compliance and many, many other things. There's a lot of crossover between IRU and the other units. At this time, the Equity Implementation Unit is currently helping review some of the complaints and working through some of those things. The next unit is the Equity Implementation Unit, which is the unit that I lead. The Equity Implementation Unit has a total of 3 staff and 1 intern, 3 including myself. I'm the Enterprise Equity Senior Manager. Nyambi is another person. We also have the Council's Americans with Disability and Title VI Compliance Coordinator. He works he works across the organization and ensures, the embedding of not only compliance, but making sure that we are also leading the way in this work. We are charged with moving equity across the organization and enterprise-wide. We implement council-wide policies, including the equity policy. The equity policy sits within the Equity Implementation Unit in particular, but also other policies. We are involved in those conversations and those decisions. The Affirmative Action Plan, that's something that everyone within the Office of Equal Opportunity is involved in. Both Ashanti and I and Sai are part of a work group, and we actively work on finding solutions to affirmative action practices across the organization. We're also responsible for the equity framework for the entire organization. And then we really work at 3 different levels to bring in and move equity. And I say move equity because equity comes from the external, and that comes from the community. It goes through the organization, and that's through the equity change team. Each one of those divisions that we outlined earlier has a group a group of leaders that have been identified, and leader not meaning supervisor or managers, but they can be, who come together on a regular basis to talk about equity and to implement equity work. Some of our divisions right now are working on a racial equity plan. Our environmental services division is working with two consultants, and they are really building out the framework and their racial equity plan across their department. And we are involved in that as well. And then also on the individual level through employee resource groups, we are also working on really building out our equity resource groups. ERGs have been, they're new to the council. We currently have 2 established ERGs, one of them being Pride, which centers our LGBTQ community. The other one is the Women in Transit group, and they really center the voices of women in transit. Everyone obviously is invited to participate. We currently have a group that has formed a charter and still beginning, which is the BIPOC group. We also have folks interested in creating a veterans group, and then also a persons with disability group. They're still at the very beginning of their development stages. We're hoping we can expand this and develop this and really create enriching programs within and through the ERGs and across the organization. We know that they are critical in creating an environment where folks want to stay at the organization and want to grow their careers. And so ERGs are absolutely critical for us to develop at this point. We also run the Urban Scholars Program with Human Resources, and that is an internship program for folks of different racial and ethnic backgrounds, college students. The program is just incredibly rich. We have a few people who've gone through the program who are currently employed within the organization. And we're hoping that as we continue this program, we're able to recruit more folks from there and to really, enhance it in a way where, everyone who comes into the program is really getting what they intend from it. We also are responsible for concur to hires. I approve every single hire in the organization, I review every single hire from beginning to end. I make sure that there aren't any gaps, that we're collecting proper data, that our process was equitable. I ask tons of questions of hiring managers, of recruiters, of talent management to ensure that our process is equitable. We are in the process of changing it so that we are involved at the very beginning versus the end, where we know that equity really happens the moment that a hiring manager identifies there's a need in their department. We're also involved in employment, retention, and outreach, right? We work with human resources and talent management to change the process of how we look at employment and what we're doing for retention. We are also involved in developing council-wide trainings. I'll be training a diversity portion of a leadership training in May. We also just recently had a leadership forum, a race equity centered leadership forum, and are currently working on a similar forum for folks who are not supervisors and managers, and that should be happening soon in the next few months. We're involved in many different types of work groups and bodies of work, including evaluations of RFPs. We will generally come in and evaluate it with an equity lens to ensure that the process was not only equitable, but the organizations that are coming forth are prepared and they have the resources and tools that they need in order to do the work that they are submitting a proposal for. And then also division, collaboration, and coordination. So, obviously equity work is all of the things above compliance. Compliance being our floor, that's our absolute must. And then equity is ensuring that every single person in the organization, feels a sense of belonging and feels a sense of value within the organization. We are focusing on, all of the components of equity, intersectional equity, just across the board. With that, I will take any questions. I think I saw a hand up briefly. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I thought I saw a question or a hand up.
I raised my hand, but I was by mistake. So
Sounds good. Marianne? Marianne?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair, and hi, Lila.
Hi.
That's how you say your name, right? Lila?
Sure.
Oh, thank you. Okay. When you during your the leadership training, can anyone in our committee can they apply for that, or do you need to have certain qualification?
So the Leadership Forum is actually a forum that we held for organization leaders. So they are current staff, folks who are already leading, departments or units. So anyone who has the designation of a supervisor, manager, director, those are the folks that this forum was for. There are a number of programs within the council that are set. One leadership program that comes to mind is through Metro Transit, but that is for folks who are already at the organization. There are other types of programs, perhaps. I would have to maybe look into that and get back to the committee, where maybe folks can get involved and just grow within that program and create a pathway for themselves. Go ahead.
Hold on. How do you change this? Okay. The equity advisory. Oh, the disability committee. How do you get to that one? You said that they're forming the task force or the committee.
Are you referring to our ADA coordinator?
Yeah.
Okay, so our ADA coordinator is also staff. It's a person who currently leads our ADA work or coordinates our ADA work across the organization. So that actually isn't a program.
Oh, no, there was what is that? What was that? There was a disability committee. You said that they're forming.
I think the ERGs, Lila.
Oh, got it. Oh, sure. I apologize. Oh, so the ERGs are employee resource groups for staff members as well. So that's for staff. We in the equity implementation unit support them. We are helping them create the group, but it is for employees. And yeah, it's unfortunately it's not for it's not a committee for community members, but it is a group of employees to join.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Patrick, you have a question?
Hi, Patrick. I think you're muted.
You're on mute, Patrick.
I was so excited that I had to raise my hand that I got to unmute myself. I just wanted to say thank you, Lila, for giving us that overview of the work of the Metropolitan Council. And a question that I had, this might be related to my public health background, but how, if at all, does the Metropolitan Mosquito Control work relate to the Metropolitan Council, or does it not? Is it a separate statute altogether that created the mosquito control work that's done through a council?
That's a good question. Ashanti, do you have any information on that?
I no definitive information. The EP, we do have EPA funded projects, and EPA, we do receive EPA funds through the Public Facilities Authority, but it's not specific or relative to mosquito control. However, what I will say is the Metropolitan Council is a big beast and has a lot of different, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some role relative to the mosquito control that I'm unaware of. So we will confirm and check into that and get back with an answer for you.
Thank you so much.
There might be two places for that. One would be with our regional park system. I think that they do some work regarding pests and things like that. And I'm not sure if our wastewater folks have any impact. I think that mosquito control, it's basically up to the it's kind of a regional development or agencies that do that, but I do recall some conversations in which play control was discussed, but in the context of the regional parks. So outside of that, I'm not sure. Any other questions?
This is
There-
Kristen.
Yeah.
I have one quick question, and it's purely out of curiosity, but does the Office of Equal Opportunity, do you guys work with like unions to make up contracts for different establishments?
Ashanti, you'll be able to answer that better, but I can tell you that we do sit in on conversations with, maybe a union representative and, like a workforce equity group. But Ashanti, you might have more information.
Sure. I think it's pretty well known that the council employs union members from various unions. Of course, the more I would say AFSCME, MANA, which are more of the administrative or professional unions of that nature, but also trade unions, both in environmental services. So electricians, 49ers, heavy equipment operators, 49ers are the same one. And then with Metro Transit, of course, ATU, Amalgamated Transportation Union. And OEO often partners with our workforce development team in HR to develop training programs with the unions to bring in employees into our organization, as well as there is a program called Building Strong Communities that is a partnership with the building trades. So 11 different trade unions, and to help improve and increase diversity in the unions across the board, both internally, but also in our what we call our external employment. So when we build projects and contractors hire employees to perform that work and complete that contract, they employ union workers as well. So we try to help them also diversify their workforce. I hope that addressed your question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional questions or comments? No? Okay. Let's see. Just looking at the time, I think that somebody's got a couple of announcements. That Patrick?
No, that's me.
Oh, okay.
So I'll have two quick announcements, and then maybe there will be time for other announcements as well. We'll see how we're doing. The first is just to remind everybody that you can attend our standing committee meeting next week at 5:30. Lila sends out that meeting invite, so you should see it on your calendar. And in that meeting, there's an important thing that we do every month, and then this month we will have a special agenda item. So every month we spend time reviewing agenda requests that have come to us and structuring the agenda for the following month. So in February's meeting, we plan for the March EAC agenda. In March, we plan for the April EAC agenda. So if you have agenda items or want to help prioritize agenda items, please come to that meeting. The second thing we will do next week when we meet in the February meeting is do an additional discussion of the bylaws. So please come if you're able to. If you're not able to, we'll find a different way to have that conversation. The other announcement I wanted to make is every year the EAC gives a report to the Metropolitan Council, and that report is scheduled for tomorrow evening. I don't know exactly what time, but it'll be sometime between 4 and 6. And that's a public meeting. And so if you'd like to see what we report and also what the council members ask us, please feel free to come, and it will be recorded, so you'll be able to see that afterwards, even if you're not able to attend at that time. Brianne is going to give the presentation with me. Co-Chair Gonzalez sits on the council during the presentation, so but is there to answer questions. And likely Edward, one of our other committee members, will also be there to answer questions. So we'd love to see you there. And I have a request related to that, which is I'd love to include our pictures in the presentation. So if you're willing to put your camera on, I'm going to take a screenshot. And if you don't want your picture, turn your camera off, because I'm going to take a screenshot in just a couple moments. So just warn you that this is happening. So you have some time to turn on or off your camera. Francisco, I got a good look of you. Thank you. And I'm going to do one more just in case people didn't like that. Sorry, this is a little slow. Thank you. And I'm going to do one more. All right. Thank you, everybody. Those are my two announcements. And Francisco, is there anything else you'd like to do to wrap us up?
No, I don't have anything that needs to report. Any announcements from anybody else?
This is Ashanti. I just want to say that all of the council committees right now are finalizing and presenting at these council meetings their work plans, which include anticipated business items and information items that will be coming before council for decisions. So I would encourage you, even if you are unable to attend some of these meetings, to reach out to your council members that are on these committees and that participate in the EAC committee. They are a direct contact to the council, and they can provide those work plans. And there's a lot of information that I would believe is, well, at least was included on the EAC's work plan that'll be presented at these meetings. Management committee is next week.
Yep. Thank you, Ashanti, for that. Okay. Any last announcement?
This is Lila. I just want to share something about the standing committee meeting. I sent out the series of meetings in the I think it was after last month's meeting. And so if you don't already have that on your calendar, or if you've deleted it, please let me know so that I can send you a new invite. Otherwise, I will not be sending a new one. So again, unless you don't have it on your calendar, you know, it should already be there.
Betsy, you have a comment?
So just a question with that, Lila. I just want to make sure I have the right dates, because I was a little bit confused. There were some canceling, and then whatever. Is it next Tuesday from 5:30 to 6:30? Is that the right date? It is? Okay.
It's next Tuesday. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Just have to double check the calendar.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here tonight. Unless there's any last questions or comments.
Councilmember Gonzalez, I think Marianne has her hand up.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna do this announcement, and this is, I don't know if everyone knows about D program. I've heard of that, and it's about deep employment and economic development, and it's about grants they are giving to different cities. These grants help different ways, such as job trainings and internships for the STEM sector of labor, as well as internationally trained healthcare professionals. Bringing this funding to Washington County would greatly aid in helping those who normally wouldn't be able to get help, and provide further aid for more citizens in Washington County itself. I'm supposed to have sent out some emails to you guys. I don't know if anyone received them. Leah, Francisco, I've sent them to you, and I've requested for you to email them to everyone, as you've asked me to email it to. I don't know if you did that.
I haven't had a chance to do that yet, no.
Did anyone receive any email for the deed program? No? Okay, well.
Marianne, we have not had the opportunity to send that out yet, but we will send it out to the group.
Okay. Looking on the website, men.gov deed, and just viewing their latest news shows that they have been working on and towards international healthcare workers. According to the article on page, the RFP, or request for proposal, was opened on February 7th. This grant helps internationally trained healthcare workers gain to practice in Minnesota. Need for medical or work, especially who do have the training and passion, but are held back by red tapes. They are offering up to $400,000 over 2 years to organizations to help internationally trained healthcare workers gain licensure. Grants for infrastructure projects. DEED has just awarded over $1 million to support 2 different cities through the BDPI, or Innovative Business Development Public Infrastructure grant programs. Grand Rapids was awarded $250,000 to assist with construction of utility and street extensions. These streets will be used to produce new business and therefore more jobs. Beauvais was awarded $984,548 to construct a
Marianne, I'm sorry.
20-acre
We are over time now, and folks can
industrial park.
review.
Yes,
folks can review the
I'm sorry. I have
information.
1 more minute. I have 1 more minute, please. Okay. Businesses and therefore jobs. These are DEED's recent actions. They are involved in helping lower unemployment and supporting the growth of the job market, making it easier for people to live their lives equally. From their website, they explain DEED as the state's principal economic development agency, promoting business recruitment, expansion, and retention workforce development, international trade, and community development. Now, I have requested to be on the agenda, and I'm sorry, but I feel bad that this I thought this was a very important thing that our community should have been able to be in touch. And you guys look so tired, so thank you very much for the audience.
Thank you. That just to clarify, those are fundings for local government and counties, cities and counties. So if you are on a community organization, you're not eligible to apply for those. So this point, if there isn't anything else, I will thank you for your participation and consider this meeting adjourned. You have a good night.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Right.